Hi everyone, so today I'm here to share with you my finished Time Traveler quilt and show you a book I recently purchased that helped me quilt this quilt. So keep on watching if you'd like to hear my thoughts on this lovely book. Okay, so recently I've really decided that I needed to do some research on figuring out how to better quilt my quilts at home on just my domestic sewing machine. So of course I turned to looking at different YouTube videos and blogs, but I really sometimes like to have something in my hands to help me work through something I can easily reference next to me if I need to. And I'm just I really like holding books. Even when I just read, I really prefer having a book to hold as opposed to, like a tablet to read from and stuff like that. That's just how I am. So after struggling to watch videos on quilting a quilt and looking at blog posts, I decided to look for some different books, and I stumbled across this book called Walk, and it says Master Machine Quilting with Your Walking Foot, which really got me excited because a lot of things I found were free motion quilting on the sewing machine, and that I just really struggle with. Maybe I'll venture into finding a book on that next, but I really feel more comfortable with my walking foot. And this book is by Jackie Gehring. I'm not really sure how to say the last name. But this one really caught my eye because a lot of the different patterns she showed on the back of the book and everything like that really spoke to me. I thought those are things that I would actually like to use. So I was very happily surprised that not only is there a ton of different design options in the book, but at the very beginning, she goes through a lot of information on the right needles to use, batting, like understanding your walking foot and where to stop and start on your foot with regard to measurements so that you're always getting perfect. If you're doing, like a half an inch apart on your stitching, where to measure on your foot so that you can stop at the right place to pivot and turn. There was just so much information that I didn't know, and it was very extremely helpful. She even goes through not binding your quilt, creating your quilt sandwich, and how she prefers to do it, because I have mentioned before that I always pin my quilts. I am going to say that this time I decided to try what she said in here to baste the quilt, and that was using spray basting. And I generally only use that on smaller pieces. But I did try it on this quilt, and for the most part it worked out okay. But I will point out a few spots where things got pretty bunched up. There was a lot of extra fabric in a few places, and that is why I washed this quilt, just to see how it would turn out, and it did cover it up a bit. You can see it has that, I love the look with it all scrunched up after it washes. Gives it a really homey feel to me, and it did help cover up some of those spots. Now, I do want to say that the spray based I use isn't what she mentioned in the book. She says that she uses 505 spray base. So I did end up purchasing that. I always just use this quilt basting spray I got at Walmart. It's from June Taylor. I never had an issue with it before on my small projects, but I could tell that since I didn't do this all in one day, it was really starting to not stick very well. And at that point, I didn't know what I should do. I tried to pull it and pin some, but it got a little bit too far, and I was not about to undo all these small stitches and start over. So I was like, well, I'll see how it looks after I wash it. I'm actually really happy with the quilt, even though there are those places that had a little bit of excess fabric. Like I said, I think it's not as noticeable after being washed. I am going to try and use the 505 spray base that she mentioned and do it again, like another quilt around the same size, and see if it works better, if that makes a difference. If not, I'll probably go back to trusty pin basting. But something she mentioned in here that I never had tried before, maybe you guys have, was heat setting your quilt after you spray baste it. And I will say, my quilt looked so good when I was getting ready to sit down and sew. It was so flat. Everything was really nice. I think if I used her full method with the same spray base she used, it'll really give me some nice results on the quilt. So there was so much information in this book on helping getting your quilt set up before actually sitting down to sew it. I found it so helpful. She walked through different like marking tools that she uses and when and which is the right one to use at which time. Just so many good, so like tons of good information that I had never considered before. So yeah, I think this is a really great book. If you're really wanting to sit down and quilt on your machine, just a standard machine, I really recommend it. I'm going to look and see if she has one for free motion quilting, because that one really overwhelms me. But this was really, really great book. So aside from all of the different patterns in here, I thought it would kind of all be, you know, really simple straight line designs, but she even has some curved, very beautiful curved designs in here, which I may try and do at some point, because I've never really typically thought of any like curved designs using my walking foot. I always thought of just, you know, straight lines. So that was fun. So I'm going to show you the one that I used on this quilt behind me. I tried doing this echoing in design. So using her tips on first stabilizing the quilt, I did some lines from side to side on the quilt to try to get everything held in place. And then I just echoed in on those stabilization lines that I quilted first. So I thought it was a lot of fun. It was definitely took me more time to do this than it would normally take me to quilt a quilt this size. Because I would usually do just, you know, straight lines across or squares, and I can do that in one day. This took me pretty much all of last week because I really had to take breaks because it was a lot of turning the quilt. So it probably wasn't the best one to choose right off the bat to try and do this quilt, because I was having to shove a lot of material through the throat of the machine to turn it all the time for this. And she does mention in the book patterns that, like designs you may choose that do have a lot of turning and which ones don't and stuff like that, which is really helpful. I knew it would take a lot of turning, but I really thought it would look nice on this quilt, and it does. I'm really happy with how it turns out, and it looks really good on the back of the quilt as well. I'll put some pictures in to show, but I'm really happy with the quilt. So one thing I mentioned that I was going to share with you guys after I got it all finished was some of the dimensions. So I put a 2-inch border and a 5-inch border. So that made this quilt finish off at 46 inches by 56 inches. So it's a nice size, just little throw quilt, something to use on the couch or something like a little lap quilt. But yeah, so that is what I was working on pretty much all last week, in between just other small projects trying to get this done, and just reading through this book, which I highly recommend. So if you're looking for a book that will help you get started in quilting, I definitely recommend it. I will put a link to it on Amazon. That is where I found it. But if you have any suggestions for any other walking foot quilting books or a free motion quilting book that really helped you, I'd love to hear from you, and just put it down in the comments so I can check it out, because this was really helpful to me. It worked a lot better than looking at Pinterest posts and blog posts and stuff like that. So that is where I am. I do have a bunch of other stuff that I'm trying to plan for you guys. I do need to get my Riley Blake block challenge done. I have my American Glory quilt blocks here that I need to get started on. This really just took up a lot of my time last week, along with us taking spring break. My homeschool my kids, and we took spring break last week, so we did a lot of fun outings. My son had his birthday. He turned 12 and he got to go check out an airport and see about what it would be like to be a pilot, which was a lot of fun, and just had a lot of fun things that we did last week. So it did put me a little behind on stuff that I want to get ready for you guys, but I am working on it along with the promised quilt block idea. I know I got some of the stuff up with that Moda is my favorite color panel. I got the bags up, but I do have quilt block ideas that I do need to get working on those and share them for you. So a lot of fun stuff planned. I just need to find the time to do them all. So I hope you all had a really good week. I really enjoyed getting this quilt finished. I hope you guys like how it turned out. I'm going to put a lot of videos up of kind of more close-ups of it so you can see it a little bit better. I know it's not the best right here, but hopefully you can see it better with some of the photos that I'm going to include for you. So until next time, you guys, thanks for watching. I'll see you later really soon, hopefully. Bye.